Let's get an official Chargers record prediction here. On the right, I have important variables for doing these. Offensive line groups always stink early in the year. Even if they know each other well, they get better, sometimes not even until the playoffs. That's extra true for teams like our own that have a lot of movement, such as moving on from Lindsley, such as putting Joe Alt in there, and the whole Harbaugh system and program. Road trips are important. Primetime games are important. Bye weeks, that's rest, recovery, injuries, and preparation. Physical teams fall out. It's hard to win after you're beat up. We saw that with the 49ers last year. You're hearing Chargers players themselves this offseason say that we want to be thought of as one of those teams. So if we play a really good physical team, that's going to take a tax and a pound of flesh on us for the next week. Divisional games are super volatile. These teams have just information banks on each other that go back decades. Teams that are just handling the rest of the league sometimes drop games you never would think within their own division. And I'm going to put another one on here, Harbaugh hunting. Harbaugh did great in San Francisco. He did great in Michigan. Everyone has high expectations for the Chargers, even though the roster is being dogged this offseason. So I think any team that is very athletic or very talented but is inconsistent, I think they're going to be on and looking to make a statement against us this year. All right, Raiders at home. We win this one. We don't love the quarterback. We don't love their offensive line. Harbaugh always has his team ready for rivalries. There's divisional games, and then there's rivalry divisional games like the Raiders. He even played in them when he was a quarterback. You could look at his numbers for the NFC West with the Seahawks. You could look at Michigan numbers. His teams are ready to go. Pierce's program and team really only has like 6 months on Harbaugh's, and I think Harbaugh's program is much easier to copy paste. This is a win. In Carolina, it's going to be a scrappy, ugly win just because it's on the road and it's early in the season. We don't love the offensive line. We don't love the quarterback. I think Mack and Bosa are again just going to be unleashed. They can play more of their styles rather than acclimating to the Minter style of like versatile dropping into coverage linebackers. And I think we're going to be in a bit of a honeymoon phase here. We're going to lose in Pittsburgh. Tomlin just got a new deal, so he's going to feel more job security to take more risks. He's really going to be headhunting for Harbaugh here. The crowd is going to be super lit. This is our second stop on a road trip. Whatever quarterback they're going with is going to be just game manager on training wheels. Tomlin knows how to do that. And I think Watt and Hayward are going to be a big problem for our offensive line group here. They're going to beat us up. So that's going to make playing the Chiefs at home harder. Champs are going to be that switch is going to be flipped on. I think we're going to really struggle with guys like Chris Jones for our offensive line, and Mahomes is going to carve up our team as we transition to that new Minter linebacker style. Just growing pains can't really be avoided. That's a loss. Bye week, it's super important to just dissect the film from Kansas City. I think that's going to teach us a lot of lessons to bounce back here, and we can recover from these big AFC big brothers, so to speak, that are trying to keep us down. We go into Denver. We're going to use our film from Kansas City, especially to give us a little bit of extra juice. We're going to be rested. Um, they're with only their second year under Peyton. They're going to have a new quarterback, whoever it is. So we're going to have that divisional rivalry intensity, and they just have so many players that they had to cut that they're going to still be in a fallout from the Russell Wilson deal. At home, Arizona, Murray is still kind of a wild horse. I think he's going to struggle against our guys as they acclimate to this new Minter style of linebacking. We have a lot of college information on Marvin Harrison Jr., and I think Herbert's going to eat that secondary at home. I think that's going to be a fun offensive game to watch. New Orleans Saints, this one's going to be a crushing loss. They're coming off of a bye. They've got extra rest and prep. I think their rushing attack is going to just break our defense. Their wily vets are going to force a lot of turnovers on our offense, and I think Carr is going to make some clutch plays. We're going to lose this one. Browns in the dog pound. I think we lose here. This is another one of those AFC big brothers, and they're going to be Harbaugh hunting. It's another year under Stefanski. They're going to be more polished. You give Schwartz stars, and he can make them work incredibly well. I think the dog pound and Schwartz and his stars are going to be a major issue for our acclimating offensive line. This is going to be a loss. Titans at home. This is another great Herbert offensive game. They've got a suspect defense outside of Snead. I don't think he's going to be enough. and Tennessee's travel is difficult in this part of their schedule. Bengals at home. This is going to be a close loss, largely due to Burrow being really clutch and their offensive weapons performing reliably. Um, this is another one of those AFC big brothers that want to make a statement against us of saying we're ready, you guys aren't. They're gonna be more rested from their previous week, and I think this is going to be a bounce back year for Cincinnati, especially during our offensive line early in the. I guess we're about midway through the year or so. But I think our crowd is going to be surprisingly more Cincinnati oriented just because that team has gotten so popular and it is LA. I think the LA crowd is not exactly going to be in favor of the Chargers for a few years. Baltimore, we might be beat up from Cincinnati. I think Lamar is really going to just eat our acclimating linebacker system. I think it's going to be one of those unavoidable growing pains. And I think John Harbaugh, has shared a lot of information with Jim, but he's such a competitor that he's not sharing everything. I think John is specifically going to use modern NFL info that Jim has not been around for. And I think he's going to exploit that. So we lose this one here. Not to mention, they may just have a better team this season. At Atlanta, we're going to be beat up from Baltimore. Um, they're going to be more rested as well. We're going to have to travel from west to east, and it's a morning game, so we're going to have low energy. That's going to be a really difficult cocktail. They also have a surprisingly strong offensive line and defensive line. That whole mix of things, I don't think is going to go well for a team like Atlanta. I think we lose this game. We go to Kansas City right after. Second stop on the road. Kansas City is going to be super loud. Even they will be Harbaugh hunting a bit. I think Kansas City is also going to be heating up for the postseason. I think their wide receiver group is going to be working well at that point. I think Mahomes is going to dominate our secondary in an entirely different way from seeing them early in the year. I think he's that good. It's also hard for warm West Coast teams to be playing in the cold, and I think until this Chargers group gets used to what that's like, I think it's going to look kind of similar to Miami last year when they had to play in the cold. Buccaneers at home. Now, I think this is a loss. I think that the wide receiver core and the running back core with Mayfield, his leadership and his stability, I think they're going to beat our secondary and early, and I think that's going to open up the run game for them to just run out the clock on us. They're going to have even more synergy. I liked their look in the playoffs last year. It is a potential win because it's late in the season. They do have a bunch of stars. If their stars are looking arrogant, they could get a little loose with it, and we could pull off this win. But I think it's going to be a loss. Denver at home. I think this is going to be our best performance of the year. I think we're going to be building and kind of ascending for the playoffs. I think our offensive line is going to be really coming together by then. I think we're going to dominate. And I think the Harbaugh program is going to be shown to be outpacing Peyton's already. In New England, because there's only one game here, we're going from home, away, home. I think we're going to really show up. I think we'll have learned some lessons about playing in the cold already. Let's be real, New England is in a rebuild, and we're going to keep the playoff momentum going. Raiders at home. I actually think this is the emotional revenge game for that 60-7 or 20 game, whatever the final score ended up being from last year. I think Harbaugh's program has taken full effect. I think the linebacker system and the offensive line system is looking decent at this point. I think it's taken all year for it to look that way, but it will. I think Minshew is going to regress to the mean, even if he did well earlier in that year. I think we are going to be so focused on the wild card race, knowing that we got to look better and better. That's going to put pressure on our guys, and practice especially. So we win this one as well. So I think we're going to be 8-9. I think we're going to be in the wild card. I think if we can make it out of the wild card, as interesting as it is, I think we would do better against Kansas City than we would against Baltimore or Houston or Cincinnati or Miami or Buffalo because of that divisional variance, because we would be playing with house money as underdogs, and because we have two films worth of losses. So Chargers go 8-9.